that was a snapshot of my life. Um, when I look back, and it's easy to look back in hindsight at some of the things that happened, um, I guess it's, for me, it's how I lived, it's where I went, the journey I went on. For many of you that are watching this who are homeless, you would have had some or all of the stuff that I've been through. And there's always a backdrop. There's always more to those stories. My parents should never have met. They were, both of them had their issues. They met in a psychiatric hospital. It's not the great place to go and meet someone to go dating on. So that relationship should never have happened. I was not in control of the breakdown of the relationship in the family. I wasn't responsible for the divisions that caused. The fact that, I had two sisters. One of those is sadly dead now. I was the one who was removed from the home or kicked out of the home. I had two sisters which stayed with my mother the whole time. And I guess that kind of made it a bit difficult as well, moving forward and understanding some of those things. It certainly formed a structure around the kind of relationships that I was getting involved with, and they were extremely damaging. Damaged people seek damaged people. And ultimately that's what happens. And I'm sure that there are going to be some people in that room or watching this video who are going to have experienced that you're finding that the relationships you're in or you're moving into are harmful. But this is something that you need to learn for yourself, and you'll need to learn how your own mechanisms for moving away from those. I picked up lots of skills when I was in institutional care. Shoplifting, never got caught shoplifting, not until much later. I could spin a yarn and beg some money. Anything really that I needed to do to get me the stuff I was going to get high on is the truth, mostly. Some food, but mostly it was let's just get high. I made the decision to do that. That was my own decision. It's easy for me to say in hindsight that everybody else around me was doing it. I fell into the peer group that was doing it, but actually that's not the truth. The truth is that I was very alone. From most of my childhood, really, I kind of spent in almost solitude. There could have been lots of people around me, but I still felt that I was distant from them and isolated from them. And that, I guess, is kind of a pattern that also has kind of formed. I'm quite comfortable in my own skin. I'm quite comfortable being on my own. And yeah, it's nice when you meet people and you have fun, but you always go back to what's comfortable. And when you come through fractured childhood, the things that are comfortable to a lot of people are alcohol, drugs, poor relationships, poor choices. These are the things that are comfortable. And when I hear people say, they're only homeless because they want to be, it's they made that decision, I think, what a load of rubbish. I never wanted to be homeless. I became homeless, and there were times when I didn't want to get out of it because getting out of it was more scary than still being in it. So I didn't want to be homeless, but I was. So I look back and I can reflect back on what some of those missed opportunities were, and some of them, we have to be perfectly honest, some of the missed opportunities are ones which I missed, which I didn't take advantage of. But if I start at the beginning, I guess we could look at the ones that the system missed. Could have quite easily done more to prevent the relationship between my parents. Clearly it was going to go wrong. Very little was done to remedy that situation, to prevent that from happening, to offer another opportunity, an alternative. With the care system, of course, going into a care system at the kind of quite difficult age, I still think that more could have been done to find me some stability. I did find a family when I was about 16, when I was, not far off of leaving the care system, but I guess all the damage had been done by then. I had a set of behaviour patterns which I was using. Coping strategies are probably the easiest way to describe those. There was an opportunity before that. I was going on holidays to a nice family in Cornwall, go for summer breaks and winter breaks and stuff like that. And they were going to America for a year. They were taking a tutor with them, so everything was fine. And they said I could go with them. And they asked the social services, who like in the UK, that's the people who look after children. I don't know what it's called in Austria. And the social services department said no. Now I look at that as an opportunity wasted, because what could have been, it could have been different. My life could have gone off in a completely different direction. I chose to go down the route of addiction, and that took a long time to straighten out. And it's I think once you're in that, you're caught in that trap. It's very difficult to get out of that trap. I chose to commit offences, which meant I ended up in prison. There were decisions that I made. I didn't sit there and go, oh, I'm going to commit offences and go to jail. But it was just, these things happened, and it was a journey. But when I look at a wider picture, lots of people, lots of young people especially now, are coming from broken homes, going through a support or care system which is failing in many areas, and they end up homeless or they end up in prison. It's almost like this preordained path that you go to. I also made the decision to get clean and to get settled and to find a home and then to find a job. I made those decisions, so I took those opportunities. And of course, I was in my job, in that particular job, for 7 years, which is a long time to be in one job. And I left that and started my own company, which is what I'm doing now. This is mine. I own this, so I'm the boss, which is great. So the opportunity came for me to do that, for me to make some conscious decisions to get things right, and I did. What happens when people miss opportunities is very rarely do they come round again. The same opportunities, different ones come. There's this old saying that what was for you won't go past you. So some of the things which could have altered my path, could have changed the direction I was going in, would have meant that I wasn't doing this, because I do this based on my own lived experience. Some of them would have meant that maybe I would be richer, have more money, and own a home. I rent my house, which I guess in lots of places in Europe that's quite normal. Not many people own their own property, but in the UK there's a big drive towards buying and selling plots of land with buildings on it. So that could have been different. I could have been married. I've got one child who's 31 now, but I could have been married. I could have had a handful of kids. Who knows? But what I do know is that the journey I went on has also given me insight, and it's given me some learning. So when I think about that, and when I thought about that previously, I thought, how can we take my journey, take the lessons from lived experience, and then learn the lessons from those missed opportunities and turn that into something positive. And that's when I started to get more of an interest in service user involvement, although I don't call it service user, and I haven't done for a long time. It's about using that experience, my experience, an experience that I am the expert on, and transforming that to help other people. So lived experience is basically an expert by experience, which is everybody who's watching this video will be an expert of their own journey. Nobody else will know as much about your journey and have a greater understanding of your journey than you will have. And the difference is, instead of holding that information in, you find ways to talk about it openly and safely. By doing that, by people talking about their journey, and by people listening in a structured, formalised way, what we can do is start to transform the way services and systems work. Now, I'm sure that there wasn't anybody within the care system that I lived in at any point didn't want to do what they thought was best. But they never asked me what I thought was best. The decisions were always made for me. And invariably, if you make decisions for somebody else, certainly without their consent or their input, 9 times out of 10 that decision is not going to be a good one, because you're not taking them into consideration. So I started to work in that area. I started to look at that much more closely, about how to use those experiences, my knowledge of what missed opportunities I'd had, and transform them into something which was positive. And I began by talking to other people, and talking to other people about their journey and about their missed opportunities. And then we began talking to organisations about the opportunities that they've been missing. So now you have this almost complete picture of how your missed opportunities, although you can't change what has happened for you, you can change the direction that you're heading in, and you can change the support mechanism and structures around the next generation of people who may well come in. Can you imagine if you're sitting there today and you're talking either on the internet or you're in a room and you're doing some face-to-face? Can you imagine half a dozen people have got their experience of a particular journey and they're able to talk about that experience? And what that does is it changes the way an organisation structures their support. Could you imagine how powerful that is? And here's the beauty. We can all do the same thing. I mentioned that there's bound to be some people watching this video who have come through broken homes, who've been in prison, had mental health issues, had addiction issues, been on the streets, lived in hostels. There's bound to be. Absolutely. But your experience of those things is different to mine. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you a very small video. The video lasts for about 1.5 minutes, and it's of a roller coaster ride. You're all going to watch the same video, but I want you to think about one thing that you notice on that video. It can be anything. It can be the sound, it can be the birds twerping if you can hear them. It could be the aeroplane that was flying across in the middle of the film. There isn't an aeroplane, I thought I'd throw that in. But it can be whatever you want it to be, whatever your thought is. And if you compare that, your thoughts, with everybody else's thoughts, what you end up with is you end up with a collective voice of different experiences about the same thing. And being able to capture those voices, which is, I will talk to you about that after the video, and deliver those voices effectively, is where transformation comes. So watch this small video, take some notes, and think about it. I'll be back in a minute.
Geil, cool. Cool.
welcome back. So, what was your thought about that? What one thing did you think about during that? It's going to be different to everybody else, but you all went on the same roller coaster ride on the screen as I did. Everybody's watching this video will see the same thing, but what you think about, how you feel it, what you experience it, that's what makes you unique. And that is why, simply put, service user is not a role which does your thinking any justice. You own your own thoughts. If half a dozen of you got together and you talked about that roller coaster ride and you looked at a way to improve it, you may all have different ideas. But then what you'll do is you'll come together with a collective opinion of maybe one or two of those ideas, which are the ones which carry more weight, which are the ones which are more achievable. When I started in my previous job and I started to look at people getting involved in services and transforming those services, I knew that there would always be differences of opinion, because people's opinion is based on their experience. We make a decision based on what we know, and I always knew that. And I remember doing one project, and it was a hostel, so building, I think there was probably about 50 or 60 people living in the hostel, and they were talking about redesigning the inside to make it more home-like rather than to make it more of an institution. So I asked everybody to come to a meeting, and about 9 of them turned up, and then we planned 3 meetings. So there was a Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, and we was just discussing what should be in this, you know, the kind of furnishings they should have, the colouring of the wall, the type of doors, all these kind of things, and what were the most pressing things that needed to be fixed or to be repaired. Some of them said, oh, it's the lift. They got a lift that went up to 4 floors. There were people who had mobility issues. They couldn't get up to the 4th floor. So because they couldn't use the lift, because the lift was too small, there was no wheelchair access to it, that stopped people from getting into the building. It stopped people from going there and finding themselves where they could get some support and they could move on. So it was one of the things that pretty much everybody agreed on. Somebody else said they wanted a jacuzzi and a bar. Now obviously that was one voice. In their opinion, that was really important to them, but of course it was never going to happen. But we talked about it, and we talked about why it would never happen and the reasons why. And that's what happens when you get together. Some things you will talk about, they can't happen because they're silly. Some things can't happen because of money. Some things can't happen because of staffing, or because people won't engage with them. They may be good for you, but they're not good for everybody else. So being an expert by experience is also about taking into consideration other people and their journey. So by listening to them and their journey and understanding their experiences helps you to then begin to work together. Formalised structures of people who have lived experience can be frightening for organisations. They can meet resistance. They can often lack funding because it costs money to keep a small group together. You know, even if it's just coffees and sandwiches to have when you're having a meeting. So there's some hurdles that you overcome. But for the systems that we all live in, and we all have to abide by their rules, both they need to understand about the services that they're providing, but they also need to understand about the kind of people who are going to be accessing them and the journeys that they have been on. So that whole process of lived experience involvement really makes a lot of sense. And there are some great examples. There's one that stretches across Europe. It's called Fianza. They're a federation of organisations that work with homeless people, but they also have a network of people with lived experience. So a network of people who are experts by experience. So that's one, and Nina House, I know, also have a process of involving people with lived experience. And they do that because it's really important how people become homeless, the journeys they go, the trajectory they find themselves in changes. It can be economic, especially, we're going through COVID right now, and across the world it's a great leveller. But what will happen is that money will run out and people will end up homeless purely and simply because of money. So a system has to change in order to understand that not everybody now will have had a long history of institutional care in the penal system. It could be financial. So it has to be very fluid in its approach. And to be very fluid, it has to have an understanding that you can give it. And this is really important. In this final part, I'm just going to summarise things for you. It's easy to dismiss where people come from and the importance that they have with their knowledge. And you should resist that. Your knowledge is key to making things better, not just for you, but for other people. An organisation should be wanting to hear your voice, should be wanting to understand all of the different types of journeys that people have. There are some common threads. They suggest that some of the more common routes into homelessness are broken homes, are failed marriages, are financial, are addiction, mental health, and a criminal justice system. But if you created a system, or continue to create systems which work as a generic, you miss out on being able to transform people's lives, because you continue to fail when the opportunity arises for you to help make change and for them to help you to make those changes. Opportunity to learn is a key. Opportunity for systems to change happen all the time. So when we talk about missed opportunities, some of the worst missed opportunities are the ones which repeat themselves. There are very few of the same thing which become like a cycle. It will just keep going round and round and round. And the opportunities are within structures are based on how organisations respond. And they respond based on the knowledge that they have. They respond based on the information they have and the decisions that they make. The opportunities which are missed are to look at different ways of making those decisions. They are missed when people don't talk. I showed you a video earlier on of a roller coaster ride. And that roller coaster ride really kind of sums it up for me, because, as I said, we're all going to have different thoughts and different experiences about the same thing. And to create a system that's flexible and individual in its approach isn't difficult. It's very easy. You just have to listen. If you go into a restaurant and you go for a meal, in front of you is a menu, and you're asked to choose from the menu. And if you've been there before and you've tried a certain food and you really like it, the chances are you'll do it again. You'll have the same one. But what if you didn't like it? What if it made you ill, or you didn't like the taste, or there was something wrong with it? You wouldn't do it again. If you were able to sit down with the chef and say to the chef, this is a problem, this meal is too spicy, or this meal doesn't come out hot enough, or something about the meal, and you were able to sit and have an honest conversation about it, the chef will listen. And then over the course of the next week or the next month or the next year, more and more people come and they say to the chef, that food's too hot or it's too cold. And you end up with lots of opinions, but lots of the same opinions. Opinions and experiences that that chef hasn't thought about. And they think about it, and guess what? They change. They think about it, and guess what? They change. The menu changes. It may well be that it comes off the menu. Nobody's buying it anymore, so they take it off the menu. It may well be that they tweak it a little bit and it becomes something which lots of people then really start to enjoy. Turn it over to the services. If they change, it becomes something that people want to make use of, that people can benefit from. But it's about sitting down and having that honest conversation. And remember, the opportunities you've missed already don't mean that you have to continue to keep missing opportunities. A new one will come every day. An opportunity to try something different to eat, like in a restaurant. An opportunity to have a conversation with somebody different. An opportunity to have your voice heard by somebody who hasn't heard it. Or an opportunity for you to think about where you want to be next, your next move. And that's where you need to be. I hope you've enjoyed this whole conference. It's been fun putting this together, I would say that. Fun's probably not the right word, but it's been lovely. And I hope you get something from it. I say to everybody that I've ever been involved with, the most important person that you will ever work with is you. Everybody else around you, they're important, but not as important as you are. You're the person you need to work on first. And do that by getting support, do that by being honest and being open and exploring new opportunities, new ways of doing things and new ways out of homelessness. Take care.